from Berlin.
Hey Romeo, nice to have nice to be on your podcast and your webinar. And hi everyone who joined in and spending their lunchtime with us.
Guys, we will wait a few minutes till everybody gets in. So meanwhile, just let us know where are you joining from before we go in live. This webinar, it's broadcasted now live. So, and later on we will also send you the recording. Also, we will stream it on different social media networks. But why I'm always saying that it's important to go live here is because we can actually, all of us, participate in putting a bunch of questions to Stephen and to understand better what is actually a minimal viable customer, because it's a let's say a new term that first time I heard from you, Stephen, in Pipeline Summit in Gdańsk when we were there. And it's something that everybody knows, MVP. And is it something that you guys came up with, or is something that it's already out there? And sorry for my not knowing this kind of stuff.
No worries. I am trying to think who came up with that term. It was probably someone from within our organization, because it was what I'm going to talk about is the transformation of our sales process that happened. And we needed something to anchor it to, because it's so much easier for people to understand if they can compare it to something they already know, like a minimum viable product. Yeah, so we were trying to find similarities to existing ideas that also resonate with what we did in terms of achieving customers that stick.
Cool. So guys, just put in where are you joining from, just for us also to understand where are you guys coming from. Also would be very cool if we have a poll. So we are just would like to know actually what are the companies that you're representing. Is it SaaS? Is it software house? Is it any other business? This way we will be able to customize the actual presentation based on your actual needs, because we want to make sure this is a interactive approach. Also, Crowdcast has a really cool feature, which is this ask a question. So if you put there ask a question, you can everybody can see your question. They can upvote it, so we can see how many of the people have similar questions. And at the end of the webinar, we will answer it. The cool part of this feature is that when you will have the recording or any other of your peers, they can jump directly in the answers of different questions. So be very, very specific to that. So Stephen, let's get started. Tell us a bit about you. Tell us very, very shortly, because either way, a lot of people know about Unbounce, so we know what Unbounce does, and let's dive into the actual presentation about the minimal viable customer.
Okay, cool. Yeah, as I mentioned before, my name is Stephen. I work for Unbounce. It's one of the leaders in the conversion and landing page space, with offering a landing page platform to build campaign pages super fast and easy. So as a company that has customers around the world in software as a service environment, the examples I'm going to share about today are based on that. But as Romeo mentioned, it doesn't matter which company you work for. Like if you're selling a product online, if you're a software house, doesn't matter what you do, you want to make sure that people who were your customer at one point, that they stay as long as they can, or that they're returning after a project is done. Because not only within the advertising space, where people always say it's so much easier to convert the click that you already have, it's also much easier to talk to someone who already worked with you and already had good experiences with your service or your product. So you want to make sure that these people
Let's dive in then.
Perfect.
You can share it, and we can dive in and I'm sure the questions will come along the way.
Well, and then let's see if technology works.
Great. So let me focus on your screen. Awesome. The floor is yours.
Perfect. So as we mentioned before, you want to make sure that customers that come through the door also stay with you for as long as possible. And for that, you need to give them something. You need to show them that you're worth like their time and their money, especially in a service environment where people can jump from a monthly subscription or like a short-term contract to another provider fairly easily. So you want to make sure that you show them ongoing value. And the idea of a minimum viable customer came from the idea of a minimum viable product, because that's like when a product first shows like that they can solve a problem and has a basic functionality to prove a concept, right? So we thought, okay, let's transform that into the market side of things, because people that want products, they also want to solve a problem most of the time or take advantage of new opportunities. So that's why we created a minimum viable customer. And to show you why this is important, I'm going to share some insight data from within our company, because within our sales team, we've been transforming the way we approach new customers over the last year and a half. And all the results that you see in the presentation are from our actual business. So this is our customer drop-off over 12 months. So at point 0, you see that's 100% of all the signups. But if you look after 1 month already, about 45% already leave. And if you see between month 3 and 4, 50% and more are gone. Afterwards, it gets a bit slower, which is normal in any business that like people drop off. But the initial drop-off between the first 30 days and with the first 90 days is pretty significant, because that shows you that 50% of the people that test out your solution or like trying out something, leaving. And so we want to make sure that a customer within that time, especially if you have a free trial like we, does all the actions that they define as success to find value in your product. So a lot of times also with us, we thought, oh, if this is the value that we present to our customers, but sometimes for them, value is something completely different. So it's important to understand what is a big value for your customer. And that's why you think like, oh, but that's why we have a sales funnel. And we have sales reps and marketing, and we explain everything about the product and how it works and how it can solve problems. But if we're honest, and this is also true for me as I work in sales, these are a lot of times these are promises we give to potential customers that what they can do with our tool. And the actual value that they perceive is not during the sales process, but when they get their hands on. So as much as we want them to be fully convinced during the sales process, in reality, the point where they see value is during when they are in the user journey during their onboarding. And onboarding is something that became more and more important, and something that was taken over by the sales team. So to make sure that this conversation that happens before they sign up with marketing, with the sales team, also continues up to that point where they see value between 30 and 90 days after they start using our platform. But as I mentioned, as we go along, please think about how does that go over to your product that you're selling, to your service that you're offering, to the projects that you do, because you can all of these things are fully transferable. So let's talk quickly about what is customer onboarding. That is a process to bridge the gap, so that customers can not only choose you, but they also see the value. So you build up these promises within sales, and then you want to also make sure that we deliver on that. And why is that important? It's like, especially if you have trial versions of any of your products, 40 to 60% of everyone testing out your product will test it out once and never come back. And that is very consistent with the graph I showed you earlier, where you see how many people actually drop off.
I think we see this also with software houses and also service companies. Like, what are those services that you're offering? Like first entry point offers, let's say those services that you do just to have a foot in the door, and how many of the customers that you have actually will continue with you. So I think this trial in this sense for SaaS is the entry point offer in the software houses or any product services. So we can think of it like that.
Cool. Yeah, like I read a really interesting book the other day, where like they surveyed a lot of salespeople across the board, and also a lot of buyers across the board, especially when it comes to really complex products. The thing that makes people come back or choose you over your competition is not necessarily your brand image, your price, or your perceived value. It's the sales process and the interaction you have within your sales cycle, because customers, they know they have a problem, so they're looking for a solution, but they want to learn something new. They want to have a conversation. They want to have an advisor that helps them along the way, not just someone who tells them the features of a product, because that's what you can read on a website. But to really match that and really understand what their need is, even if they say, oh, we want to do one thing, if you understand it's part of a bigger problem that you can also solve, you can build a long-standing relationship. And after that entry-level offer that Romeo mentioned, or a free trial, you can build on that and make sure that you follow up on that, and it shows a potential customer that you understand what they're talking about and what their problem actually is, because chances are that you are experts for them and you understand the market as a whole that they're in much better than themselves, because you speak to so many different companies in that field. So you have a much better overview over the whole market. So this is something that can drive an insane amount of value to them during maybe a first test project or whatever it is. And it's not only us who says that. It's like, this is Ankit Jain from a Google venture fund. They see the same thing. They help companies build out apps and start companies from scratch. They see that all and over again, like with the first 3 to 7 days, they call it, if you don't get your user hooked, but we call it like, if they don't see the value in the tool, they will never use it again. So they're really open to try out a lot of different ideas and things, but if they don't see that aha moment or like the value that they actually get from that, they will just leave and go somewhere else. And so customer onboarding can be many, many different things. There are just a couple of ones that we use. We have phone calls, videos that we record. We have in-app messages, text messages, documentation, emails. Can be on-site meetings if you have a longer sales process and you actually travel to your company, to potential customers. This can also be vastly different in different regions of the world, depending on where your customers come from. Some people respond more to phone calls. Some people want it in person. Some people are very happy with emails or videos. So really try to customize your onboarding to the people that you're actually talking to. And the research shows that in 2019, over 70% of all customers engage with personalized messaging that are specific to their needs, not a generic welcome email that you get from any other tool, because they want to be taken care of, especially if you're offering a solution or a service or a product that is not cheap. So to get away from selling on money or talking about money, it's more about how can we help you? And this also has to be consistent within the messages. And this leads to having a personal and valuable experience throughout that whole process. And we all know the best personal experience you can have is in a one-to-one setting. But if you're not necessarily working in a small company that has a manageable amount of new customers or new clients, but you want to scale that up, then the question is, how can you scale up a one-to-one experience? And there, luckily, we're in an age now where we can use a lot of tools and machines that can help a human sales force or an onboarding team to manage this conversation and also to know when to jump in and when to sit back. Let's start with the humans first. And this is what I'm going to show you now as an example of our onboarding team, how they handle a new customer that signs up for our tool. And we started with the red arrow. It's like someone signs up for our tool, they get a notification that someone started. So one of my colleagues checks out their details, calls in, has a really cool conversation with them to understand their situation and see how we can help them best throughout the trial period. And most importantly, keep them engaged throughout their trial. So it's not just a once-off conversation, it's an ongoing conversation while they're getting set up within our tool. So how can machines help with that? Because just to give you an idea, within Unbounce, we have about 2,000 new trial starts every month. So this is something we cannot just hire hundreds and hundreds of people to be able to do that all with human power. It would not be feasible and also wouldn't make any sense to build up a team like that. So we use tools like Salesforce, Zapier, Slack, Dialpad, and these kind of tools to help us along the way. So to be a bit more specific, we use, for example, Intercom and Gmail for our messaging. We use Salesforce as a CRM, Clearbit to enrich data that we get. So if someone signs up with a company email, they can tell us what industry are they in, how big is the team, maybe what kind of tech stack are they using. So you know already, or like we know already, before jumping on a call with them, what are they using? What might be some of the problems they're experiencing? And we don't have to ask these questions and be much more informed when talking to them. Then we use a chatbot, Grift, for messaging. We use Dialpad. It's a voice over IP tool. And we have tools like Node and Domo that are more for data analytics. And most of our stuff is connected with Zapier. So this is something how it can look like. This is a notification that I got. So someone signs up to Unbounce, to our tool, it gets logged in Intercom, then this gets sent via Zapier to Slack, where I get an email notification like that. Oh, this new person signed up for our premium plan, annual with a 14-day trial. I can see, oh, they're an agency, company size 2 to 5, so not too big. And I get links to all of their the resources I need to go through. So to Salesforce.
You get this data from Clearbit, right? Like in Zapier, you are data enriching all this information.
Exactly. It's a mix between Clearbit, and we also have a sign-up survey. So we always try to get real-time data from someone who signs up, because usually it tends to be more accurate, but we have Clearbit as a backup. For example, at the bottom, you can see here, monthly AdWords spend. This one doesn't have any information, or the Alexa ranking, how they, like it's this is more focused to the S in this case, but it can give you a lot of information that can help you put them in a general market to give you an idea about their size, maybe an idea about their spending and stuff like that. So we try to combine this, and I will show this in the next step. So this is what we just saw now. This information also goes into Salesforce along with our sign-up survey. And then they get a call. This gets logged into Salesforce. Then we follow up via email or intercom or chat. This also gets all logged in Salesforce. And from there, we can run real-time reports at any time of the day. So we always know what's going on and where are bottlenecks. So with this, it makes it really easy to see, oh, for example, my follow-up email, their open rate is like only 1%. So maybe this is something I should focus on to improve the communication on that side to see more people continue being in touch with us. And this is just like the way we structure it here over the first 4 weeks. So from a welcome message to the first call, to emails that we send along the way with more information. We even send a goodbye message. So we tell them, look, this is the last time you hear from us, but don't worry, like if you have any questions, you can always come back, because how many times do you get bombarded every day from emails from people you worked with like last year or whenever? And it's very annoying. So we want to make sure that like we also say like goodbye properly. And as you can see here, it's a broad mix between what is done by humans and what is done by machines there. And so that's how they work hand in hand together, and also know exactly when to jump in and when it can be automated. And I want to show you one example. This is a welcome email from our onboarding team. It has a couple of things. First, in the headline, it's like, hey, this is Nick from Unbounce, one of my colleagues in Vancouver. And also in the subject line, hey, we're here to help. They took a picture with like the people that you actually see who is talking to you, because in this online world, sometimes you don't even see who you're talking to, and most people expect everything is automated in the computer anyway. So put some faces to the names in emails. But we also tell them up front, look, this is an automated email, but we are real people and we're here to help. So it's fully okay to acknowledge that some things are automated to make the experience better for people, but they're also real humans to help them. And especially if you work on projects with customers together, it's important to build up that human connection as soon as possible.
This is brilliant, because we are acknowledging the fact that yes, it's automated, but look, here is who we are actually, and this is the picture with them. And sometimes we forget this, and mainly we forget because we are in a lot of rush, and maybe we have a lot of strong KPIs. So we actually forget that, hey, there is a human on the other side too, and there is emotions, and we need to link that to express that excitement, because even in this picture, when I see it, and also you say, hey, I also hate automated emails, so I know that, but still we are here to help. Brilliant.
Yeah.
And it's tied with all the members of the team. I mean, it's not one person.
No, nice. And also see that it has all the phone numbers where they can reach us, and it has all the information right there. But most importantly, every message that you should send out and that we send out has only one call to action, one click, one intention, and not 5 things at once. Because not only on landing pages, you should only have one click and one button to get people engaged. The same thing is for emails as well. If you have only an email with one intention, it's almost 400% more likely to be clicked on than an email with a lot of different things to do. And one example is our webinar for new customers. Here, we tell them in the subject line already what they will get. We will keep it as brief as possible to give the information that they need and not more. And we have one call to action. And what is it for? To join the webinar, to make it really clear this is what you're going to do to help get started easier. But to build out all of these things and to understand what to focus on, it's important to analyze data. And every company has data. But it's important to structure them and to analyze them. I remember when I started working at Unbounce about 3 years ago, they were still in the early stages of building a data team and starting building a data warehouse and making use of all the data that we have about people using our tool and opening our emails and responding to our calls and all of these things. Because the more information you have, the easier it is to customize your onboarding process to make sure that the people see value. And there are two types of data I want to tell you about. One is the usage data from our actual tool, and the other one is our sign-up survey. And start quickly with our tool usage data. When we asked our data team what makes success, like people who stay with us for a long time that way? What are like common denominators that they have that we can learn from and target? One thing that we found is that new customers that are connecting a domain to our tool so they can publish their pages on their own domain and send live traffic to it, they have more than a 200% higher chance of converting, in the meaning of paying and becoming a long-time customer, than the ones who don't. So what that means for us is, domain connection equals a higher chance of conversion. That's a data insight that we can leverage into human action. That meaning we offer them during our calls a one-to-one help to set up their domain together, to sit with them and make sure that they do this process. Because with this, we can ensure that the time that we spend with them one-on-one is actually well worth the effort, because they are so much more likely to become a paying customer. The second one I want to talk to is user-provided data. And this is something that is very underrated. And this is something where you can really ask your customers, what are the problems you're trying to fix? Where you're coming from? Have you used any tools like ours before? What's your experience level? And most people are willing to share data if it leads to a more personalized experience. So it's not like, especially in times of like GDPR and all data privacy and data security, it's not true that people don't want to share their data. They just want to know what happens with the data. And so you can say, look, please help with answering these questions, because it helps us to help you better. And this is, for example, how it looks in Unbounce. It's a couple of questions about the industry, how many people, if it's a company, is an agency, what problems are you trying to solve, what's your experience level. So not too much. And that via Zapier gets also pushed into our Salesforce. And that's how, for example, that can look like. Oh, this lead, for example, is 250 to 250 people. It's a software as a service. The person who signed up is a designer, has advanced experience, and wants to use us for pay-per-click campaigns, so for online advertising. So this gives me already so much information. So I know when I reach out to them, I can start talking to them about things that really matter to them, and I don't have to start from scratch to tell them how to build a landing page, for example. That's why segmentation is so important when customizing the messaging. And as one example, I just want to talk about the experience level. Here, like I said, advanced. So as I mentioned, you can talk to him about something specific, or some more advanced functionality, or some more advanced problems he can solve with our tool. So what's the minimum value for this customer or for customers within the first 7 days? For example, we have things we want them to achieve in 30 days and 90 days, but just as an example, let's stick with the 7 days. And let's do 2 examples. Someone who is an absolute beginner, new to landing pages, doesn't have any idea what that is, or someone, like in the example before, already has experience. For someone who is completely new, they probably want to learn the basics. For someone who already has experience, they want to learn something new. They want to utilize the tool to create more revenue, to create more leads, to create more sales. So it's a much different conversation. So I want to make sure with someone who's completely new that they complete all the basic steps that we have in our tool within the first 7 days, so they have the best chance to see value. Or, for example, one of our more advanced features, dynamic text replacement. So to create dynamic landing pages is something that we can talk about with the more experienced guy to have a more interesting experience for that person. And this allows us to automatically match the right content with the people that's interested for, and that at scale, because we get all that information while they sign up for our tool. But if it's a more manual process for you, these are also things that you can ask even during a sales process already, to get all that information and put that into your CRM, into your Salesforce, into your HubSpot, wherever you manage your customer data. And with that, the people that talk to can have a much better engagement with them And at the end, it reduces the churn. But for people who don't know churn means the drop-off rate from like if someone signs up and then they stop using your tool and stop paying you, that is considered churn. The second thing it allows you to do is to collect data and track and measure the data at every step of the funnel. So if you know, okay, someone comes through the door, they start their first project, and you can see, oh, someone like after that initial test, they don't want to continue, or someone who was a long-time customer suddenly decides to stop working with you. You have data about these people along the whole customer journey, and you can see where are potential bottlenecks, where are problems, where do you need to focus on with manpower in order to solve these problems. And it allows you to make data-driven decisions because we all have experience, and it's so easy for us to be blinded by our experience, where if you look at data, sometimes we get surprised so many times that things we thought was true for the longest time are suddenly not true anymore. And that's why making decisions based on data is the best thing that you can do. And after all, it frees up the time of our colleagues and myself, and lets us know when it's needed to have a call and when we can leave them alone. And in turn, that allows us to be more productive and efficient. And an example with a domain connection, if we see someone didn't connect the domain yet, we want to make sure that we be there and help them along the way. So that's a good time to jump in and help them. But these are a lot of steps and it's a lot of effort in order to pay more attention. And it takes a lot of time and money to focus in on that and to experiment what works and to build out a process. So let me show you why this is important. Within 1 year, we were able to increase our customer adoption by 22%. Let me bring up the graph that we had in the beginning. The blue line that you see was the initial graph. The red line that you see here is after 1 year with onboarding. You see the 50% mark is now pushed back to 6 months. It was before, it was by 3 months. And also the initial drop-off of 40% is now almost down to 25%. So a lot more customers that decide to use our tool stay with us for longer. And if you know how much a customer is worth for you, it's very easy to run the numbers and to see how much money you're leaving on the table by not making sure most of the people that are interested in your service or your product stay with you. Mm-hmm. And last but not least, I want to give you a very simple framework. Like this can be very complicated, but I will keep it very simple and you can build it out from there. And if people are interested, I'm happy to share that after the webinar as well. How you can build your own process there. And it's very simple. And the top is always, what is the customer value? So what do they want from the tool? For example, in the slide that we had before, that if you talk about the experience, are they a beginner? Are they an experienced person? What steps do they need to do in order to see the value? What actions does this entail? What do they need to actually do? Because if you go back to tier 2, they're like, oh, make sure they do all the basics. The step 3, tier 3 is, what are these basics? And tier 4 is, what do you need to do within the company in order to enable these steps? And to keep it as simple as possible, let's stick with the example of show me the basics. As you said, like complete the basic steps within 7 days. What are these basic steps? Is watch our webinar, talk to our onboarding specialist, connect to the domain, because these are the things we identified as most crucial during that process. So what do we need to do? We need to actually create a webinar, make sure that it's running, that we're answering the questions, that we're maintaining this, that we're promoting the webinar. We have to make sure that we call every new customer within 15 minutes because that's when they're still engaged in the tool. That's where they just signed up. They decided to take time out of their day to focus on learning about a new tool, because this is also something we have to be mindful about, that people's time is valuable. So we want to make sure that when we talk to them, it's the best chance that we can actually have a meaningful conversation.
So I suppose this is when you're using, and I think it answers my question about lead scoring. So these are the three most important data points, let's say, when it comes to lead scoring. If you have these three actions, the pink color, then you score them as a high opportunity, right?
Yeah, it's like, then you can see, if you know, like, oh, they're connected their domain, so you know the chance of them actually paying the first time after their trial period is over is much, much higher. Like when you talk to them on the phone, you make sure that you understand what they want to achieve and help them along the way. So you foster the engagement. If these things are met, that increases the chance of them becoming a paying customer for us tremendously. So since this is a framework for people who already signed up, it's not so much about lead scoring, but more about like new customer scoring. But you can do the same thing as I mentioned in the beginning. Also for prospects that come through the door, or the people that are potentially interested in you, they have a problem. So you also need to understand what's their problem, what's the value. Where it says, show me the basics, what's the value that they want? Is it an app that they want to have created? Is it a product they want to buy? It can be whatever it is. Is it a service that they need? Okay, what are the things you like? How would they see that value? How can you show them that you can provide this? And what are the steps they actually need to see or maybe do, like, to do that? That might be, for example, if they want an app developed, have a checklist for them or a questionnaire for what they want to, that you actually understand. Is that a good customer for us? Can we actually help that person? Because nowadays in sales, a lot of times you hear, yes, we can do this, no problem, everything works. And then you charge the client for the first time and they don't see the value. And then there's a lot of frustration. And in a time of age where you have tools like Trustpilot, you have Twitter, you have social media, especially if you're more in the B2C world and not so much in the B2B world. But even there, like, this can really damage your reputation because people can be really vicious about that. So you want to make sure that you can actually help someone. And we have that from time to time here where we tell people, cool, I understand what you want to do. Like, it's a really great idea that you have, but sorry, Unbounce is not the right tool for you. Ideally, if I can, I would help them and give them some recommendations what might help them. But even being honest with them after like one of these steps goes a long way. And I had it multiple times in my time here where people came back when they changed jobs in a different company where it wasn't, for example, they were working in a small company before, so Unbounce was maybe too expensive for them and too professional. And then they worked in a bigger company, but they had that great experience and that honest conversation, and they came back. And one thing in pre-sales or like in the sales process is actually asking them what do they want. And then you can see, oh, we can actually deliver on that app. That's not a problem. And then we can continue to the next step. But in order to help them see the value or show value, these are the steps that you need to do. And that is different from company to company. And this is really something where you have to ask yourself, what is the value that customers see? And that is not something your marketing team or your sales team comes up with. This is something you learn from your customers. And don't be afraid to ask them. We have customer interviews with people who are paying customers, and also companies who choose one of our competitors all the time to learn, why did you choose us? Why did you choose someone else? To understand what does value mean for them. So don't be afraid to talk to people, even if they didn't choose you. That can be.
And if you share the framework, that would be really great. So in the follow-up, we can also send it to the people, so they can use it, because I think this is crucial. We can go on now, and then we have 5 more minutes for the presentation.
Okay.
And can jump into questions. Guys, prepare. If you have any questions, you can even drop it right now. Just press the button, ask a question. Other people can see questions, and that way we can make it more efficient, even if you go back to the recording.
Perfect. So my last point for this framework is actually the success metrics. When do you know? And this is, I know this is again is SaaS specific, but think about what are your own success metrics for the tools that you come up with for your framework. Let's start at the bottom. How do you know if a webinar is successful or not? It's like how many people attend? Like especially with the same with this one. How many people are attending this? How many people are getting value from this webinar? How many people click on a link to sign up? The same way, if you go one higher, what is, for example, if you talk now about like talking to an onboarding specialist, what is the connection ratio? How many people can we actually reach within 15 minutes? Is 15 minutes the right time frame? Is it earlier? Is it later? To see like, okay, when is something successful? Also with domain connections, how many people actually connect their domains? So there, the number of conversions is, in this case, how many people connect their domains. And if you take that higher, what happens when they complete these steps? What is the churn rate? How many people are staying? How many people are paying? And how long are they paying? And if you go back to the overall value that they're looking for, then when we can start about talking about things like customer advocacy and net promoter score. Like, would they recommend you to their colleagues for similar projects? How long are they staying with you? And these kind of things. So you really have to start really granular in order to build up to that great value proposition or to the actual value that a customer is expecting. And as I mentioned before, in order to find that out, talk to your customers. Luckily, we have a lot of people who are signing up and we're talking to a lot of people, so we can see it in our email conversations. But it doesn't matter what you do. Like if you reach out to customers, if you read reviews on platforms, on social media, this is all helpful. And you know when you're on the right track if you see things like this. Like we are launching in the coming days, we wasn't able without your assistance. Like you're an angel, like best in class, great sales team. It's great to have an onboarding team, like amazing resources. And this is like our favorite here. Like it's the best effing onboarding email I've ever received. And if you read something like that, you know you're doing the right thing. So one thing you have to keep in mind with whatever business you're in, if it's a subscription business, if it's a software house, if you're selling a product, doesn't matter. Your customers need to keep choosing you, because if they only choose you once, it's so much harder to get new customers through the door and to attract complete strangers to your business than to have a good relationship with the customers that already know you, that already working with you, that they continue working with you. Or in a case where they really like only had one project that you could help them with, that they recommend you to other customers or to potential new business for you and for your company. And that's the thing I want to leave you with.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Stephen. I think that was a lot of information to digest, and it's really cool that you went so deep into the discussion, into the very specific examples. But I was always wondering, and I will put this will be my first question, and meanwhile, if you guys have any question, just drop it in now or at the recording. My question is, why do you think that actually tech companies, like maybe early startups and some software houses, don't actually implement such onboarding process? They don't push that much on the onboarding, and rather push much more on gathering new business. Is it because it's too complicated? Is it that it's, I don't know, too hard to do? They don't have the know-how? What are your gut feelings around this?
I would say big part of it is tradition. This old sales process used to work for many, many years. So like their parents, they responded to that old transactional selling. Like, oh, I need something, I buy it, because the suppliers used to be limited and also limited to the area, because in the beginning there was no internet. So where do you find suppliers? In your area with your phone book. But and then when the internet came along, there was a limited amount of suppliers, especially in like online services, because there were so many new like progressions. Oh, suddenly everyone wants the apps. Everyone is mobile first. Everything is changing all the time. So there is a lot more complexity to everything, and it's not so easy to. When it comes to like, oh, I just buy a printer. I read the spec sheet of the printer, and it's very easy to know, okay, this was rated good or bad by whatever company, and then that's how I buy my printer. But for example, if I buy a product that costs maybe like $2,000, $3,000 a month, and it's vital to my business, it's not something I can just buy and go in a shop and make a quick decision. I need to fully understand. And I think with the process becoming more and more complex, an organization that wants to be successful a long time needs to help people understand their problems, unpack their problems, understand how it makes sense in an industry standard. Because if, for example, you experience a problem that is very unique to your company, but you know, like from your industry knowledge, that the whole industry as a whole, there's the deeper underlying problem behind that. You need to help your potential customer uncover that and to make them aware of that in order to be able to help them on a more, not only in one product or one project that you do with them, but in a broader scale. Because if you can show them that is like, look, there's not only that one thing, but we can help you open up a whole range of possibilities. Then they see you as a trusted advisor and not just as a salesperson, right?
Yeah, thanks a lot. Have a question from Przemek, and he's asking, how did you start? Was it complex process and extensive tools from the beginning? Because I believe people are very initially afraid of implementing such complex solutions, because it's sometimes overwhelming that, oh, we have Zapier, we have this tool and that tool, so it's like quite hard to connect them all. So how did you guys start? How this process went?
I think the easiest place to start, if you're in a sales position, talk to your marketing team. If you're in a marketing position, talk to your sales team. Because the first thing that potential customers see is maybe an ad or your website or whatever they see first, right? So it's a marketing material. But a lot of times, it's also true in our company and in every company, what sounds good in a marketing language is not actually something customers like. That's not how they would phrase their problem. So if I'm on the phone, if I'm talking to someone and I hear their problem and I know, oh, they probably seen this marketing material and that's how they came to us. The first step is to align the communication there and to really like talk the same language, because everyone says, yeah, like, oh, we are like, our internal processes are great and we're always talking to each other. But in reality, that's not always the case. And so that is a good first process in every customer interaction that you have in person, especially, or either like with a questionnaire, write down what are the things that people talk about, what are the values that they're looking for, to build up that database of knowledge of why customers choose you and also why they don't choose you. And then find out, okay, what are the things where you excel at? Okay, we are like, if you're a software house, like if you develop apps for companies, for example, what is your niche market? What do you focus on? Where you're extremely good at, and how you use the knowledge that you have from your industry to help that one specific customer in a one-to-one conversation. And if you see this is something that works in a one-to-one conversation, that's what I mentioned in the presentation quickly. one-to-one is always the best way, but you can't always do that one-to-one. If you see something that works, think about a way to scale that. How can you automate that process afterwards? And so we started with one process. So for example, the domain connection was one little thing in the whole entire process that we do, that we figure out, okay, let's try talking to customers about it and see if it changes something. And then we said, oh yeah, it changed something. So what's the next one? I know it can be very overwhelming to have everything, but that's why, like, if you never start, you will never get anywhere. Pick one thing, doesn't matter if it's successful or not at the end, but a small thing, an MVP of an action to bring it back to that. What is the minimum thing that you can do? And that test that and see how that resonates. And if it resonates, build on that.
Cool. Thanks a lot. Guys, like if you spent with us 50 minutes, that means you're pretty engaged with us and you like what we do. So I will just say it once. What we are doing now in MAN.Digital, we are running a mentorship program for tech companies. So we are bringing people like Stephen and other mentors in 6 weeks to help companies build up all these kind of marketing funnels at the end of the day, and onboarding and also sales. So we are looking for beta testers. And I would just say it once, if you would like to participate in this beta test, before we put it out there for sales, just email me the email in the chat. I'm saying this because this will be out there, you know, on also on different social platforms. So if you're interested, just write me at Romeo@Man.Digital. Also, we will send you follow-up emails. So you will get the frameworks. And if you want to join the next webinars, just go to learn.man.digital and you can see there all the whole schedule. We have some others that we'll put up. And if you really want to see how Unbounce works and actually the email copy that they have, then you can, I suppose they can go and have a trial and test the tool and see how it works, see the experience that is behind it. And yeah, start building landing pages, because and don't spend a bunch of money on Facebook ads. First, do one call to action, bring that value that you have, make it as minimalistic landing page with that message, and then later on start this conversation that we just talked about. I think this is the simplest way to just get started with landing pages. Thanks a lot, Stephen, for all the great content that you shared with us. We keep in touch, and all the best for you in Berlin, all the best for you wherever you guys are.
Thank you. Also, like, if you have any follow-up questions, I know it was a lot to digest, and I understand that. Roman is going to share the presentation with the framework. If you have questions afterward, it also has my email, my contact details. Please feel free to reach out to me. You can tweet at me. You can send me an email, whatever. I'm happy to also follow up on that and help you guys with any questions that come from when you actually had some time to think about how this would apply to my own business.
Cool. Thanks a lot, guys. Keep in touch and have a great week forward.